All right. I'm going to call our public hearing to order. It is Monday, April 8th at 6:21 p.m. We are being recorded for public access and YouTube and all that stuff. So we'll begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, as we always do. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, this is our public hearing for the MBTA Overlay District High-Density Housing. Tonight we have Judy Barrett from the Barrett Group to give us our presentation. So welcome, Judy.
Thank you very much. So my goal tonight was to make sure we understand what this law is and why this is and how it applies to it, and talk a bit about the existing proposal for something, and both the district boundaries as well as the text of the proposed law. So just so everyone knows before I go too far into this, thank you for the comments from the town council. We have integrated all of those in revised draft, which if I had saved the office to send it to you, I would have done it. So I'll send it to you tonight. But we have updated all of that. And there are just a couple of things I want the board and the public to understand about why some of the issues were what they were in those comments. So, but first let's just do an overview. So this MBTA communities law was enacted by the legislature in 2020 as part of what's called the housing choice legislation. And I hope you all can see this. I know it's probably a bit fine, but this is the best we can do with the available zooming in here. So the legislature adopted this as part of what was called the Economic Development Law 2020. We know it in the planning world as the housing choice legislation, which did two things. It created an requirement, which is most of what we're talking about, for communities that have MBTA service or are adjacent to it, to have zoning in place to provide for multi-family housing. Another thing that legislation did was change the size of the vote in town meeting to adopt housing provisions like this. So you probably all know if you go to town meeting a lot. Is it water in the building?
I think that's it.
Sorry, there's a bit for normally you do at town meeting. But if you're adopting something like this, but you want to vote options, so those are the two pieces of housing choice. The one that we're most concerned about is the indicated law, and it applies to the issue of a train station. What the law says, the legislature wrote a very broad law. It said you have to have a district, at least one district that allows for multi-family housing as of right, needs to be within a half-hour train station, when that's possible. You can't put age restrictions or anything on the housing. Thank you. So sorry. Yes, this. You can't do something, put limitations on the housing that would discourage or prohibit families from living in the housing. So you can have age restrictions, you can have size restrictions. And pretty much with that, the legislature left it to the Executive Office of Housing and Living Communities to sort out the details. So when we talk about this law, we talk about the statute, and we also talk about the guidelines. Both matter. What the law says is, if you don't comply, you lose access to some fairly significant grants. There can be other penalties as well. And many of you may be familiar with what's going on with the town of Milton right now, which I'm not going to dwell on, other than to say that is a situation where the state is pursuing other penalties. So this is the area that's affected. The different colors signify the type of community that you are left support MBTA purposes. So you folks are in here. You are an MBTA communities commuter rail town. So the color designations simply refer to really how much housing you have to provide and that's the main difference in these colors. The darkest ones were called the rapid transit communities. Those are like Quincy, Brookline, places that have red line, orange line, green line service. Their deadline already passed this December. Most communities in the sort of turquoisey type color and the gray or yellow all have a deadline of the end of this year. So people ask me sometimes, why do we have this law? So not everybody's happy with it. And I think it's important to understand whether people are comfortable hearing this or not. There's a housing crisis in Massachusetts. We are putting ourselves at a competitive disadvantage in terms of economic development because we're losing younger workers. This actually happened in my own office. We have a young planner who's great. She left us for a job in Southern State where she was going to take a pay cut, but her housing costs were $12,000 less a year than she was going to pay a year. So we sort of dug a hole for ourselves in Massachusetts, and we need to get out. And I'll be the first to say, zoning's not the only reason that we are having a housing shortage. It's a part of it. It's the part that cities and towns can control. But there are other things going on in the sort of statewide attention to housing that go beyond this bill. This bill is a piece of what needs to happen. The other thing I would say about this bill that people sometimes don't know, I don't know what the last time was that Whitman had a chapter 40 comprehensive permit. By the way, very long time. When towns get those, the first thing they say is, why is the state making us do this? The fact is that the comprehensive permit development under chapter 40B goes where development wants to do it, and where state agency says it's okay. The difference between this law and that is that this law gives you a chance to plan where it should go. And that's what we've been doing with the board for the last several months, is trying to plan where this district should go. So you have more control.
Does that mean that if this law gets adopted and we set up this zoning area, the developer can only put a 40B?
No, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean
what you just said, that's not.
No, development can still come in with 40B. But if I were a community that had just adopted the zoning in 40B, I'd be pushing back the state around what's called site, which the developer needs in order to come to the appeals. I'd be pushing back and saying, anyway, we just did this. It puts you in a better position to perhaps stop an unwanted project. Some 40Bs come through and they're great, so it doesn't think you want to necessarily shut everyone off. My point is just that you don't have control over where 40B goes. This law says plan for it. I think it's important to understand. So, how does this apply here to the community? Well, obviously, you're a commuter rail. And the way the guidelines work, guidelines and the law together, you have to have the zoning district. It's at least 37 acres. It has to have a minimum, what's called gross density of 15 units an acre, but yellow works up to 15. But that's what the statute says. At least 20% of the district and the units have to be near the train station. And then ultimately, the number of units that that district can support has to be at least 800. So if you do the math, it's pretty clear that 37 times 15 doesn't give you 8. So you really have to be thinking about how do you design the regulations for this district. So you get to that zone capacity number, day and night basis. You have to meet that. That's part of the requirements. It's like a big checklist. I need at least 50 acres, or at least 37. I have to have at least 15 units an acre. I can't have restrictions on the unit sizes. I have to have on one of the districts near the train station. And I need to have something that says, for zoning purpose, someone could propose 898 units in this area without any special units. So that's sort of the challenge. You have to have something in place by the end of this year. And then once you submit it, the state has a 90-day period in order to determine whether that zoning is approved. Now, not to discourage anybody, but it's April 8th, and most of the rapid transit communities that have their zoning in place by the end of December still don't have a decision. So it's taking a long time. Yes.
Just a quick question on that. If we submit our bylaw and it's timestamped, can that lapse due to inactivity from Bristol's office?
So, under Massachusetts law, something goes into effect at a town meeting house. Realistically, it isn't active until the Attorney General's office has reviewed it and said, but the difference with this law is you need approval from two agencies.
Okay.
You need the Attorney General to say it's approved as to form and statutory requirements.
Yep.
You have the HLC having to say you meet all these 3A requirements. The AG's office needs a faster. I don't know.
So,
They're having a meeting tomorrow with, I've set up a group of us and doing all this work to update us on where they are.
so say at whichever town meeting or whenever we hold this to put to a vote the people of Whitman, we will be exempt from a disqualification as long as we're stamped by 12/30/2024.
As long as you submit your compliance application to HLC by December 31st,
Okay.
you will be deemed in compliance.
Thank you.
There are things the law does not require. It doesn't require your town to provide infrastructure for any developments. The developer needs water, needs sewer. It's on the developer to provide it. It doesn't require housing development. This has been really hard for communities to understand. Unlike something like Chapter 40B, which is all about ownership, this law is about zoning. So if you've ever been involved at all in development, you know that it's never just about the zoning from the developer's point of view. I have to comply with wetlands laws, I have to comply with environmental laws. There are things that can intrude on the zoning right and essentially change what the developer can actually get out of the parcel. This law does not change anything. This is strictly about zoning. The other thing the law does not do is give communities an opt-out. So when you're subject to the law, you're subject to the law. And as I said on the earlier slide, it's 177 communities around Boston where you see the law. Abington just last week passed their MBTA community zoning.
Unanimously.
Pardon me?
Unanimously.
I know.
I was there, yes.
Oh, were you? Yeah, I worked with them. It's fun. Rockland's rolling out in public meetings. They're going to do something now. You're not. The thing that gets tricky about this zone is the way we typically think about density. You look at the capacity of an individual parcel. You know, these. I know I can get 20 units an acre here. I'm using 20 as an example. I can get 20 here. I can get 20 here. I'm golden. I just need 20 units an acre. I've got it. I don't care about this parcel. I just care about these three. That's not the way the MBTA communities law works. The MBTA communities law says, okay, so here's your district, whatever it is. The whole thing has to average out to at least 15 units an acre. And that's part of what makes the regular zoning this. Because some parcels are easy to set to a certain number of units. Some lose units because there are no rights of way, wetlands, various things that knock out land. So you have to, in the end, have a district that's at least 20% inside your so-called station area, which is really half mile station, is at least 15 units an acre, and gets you to that zone capacity number of 898. So it's not going to be 37 acres, a minimum requirement. It's not going to be that. And it's not going to be exactly 15 units an acre, because it can't be. It just never works out that way. All the calculation of the density for this is based on a geographic information system model in which we feed parcels based on, consultation with the board, what property should be in here. And each one of those parcels is getting analyzed for, this is showing up well. Each one of these parcels is getting analyzed for whether it hits that 20 units. But we're much more concerned about the total. Because if we fall below 15, we fall below 98, we don't have a compliant district. So the district as proposed is on your left. It's this area right here, which I think those of you who live here or work here can see what the rationale was for that area. And it does work. What we had to do, because the state is paying more attention to minimum frontage than I think any of us really understood as far as recent years a month ago. We had to say, all right, we set the frontage the way we'd like to in this district in order to encourage good assembly of parcels. We're going to lose too much land. So I think that was when somebody started here about, my God, do we have to drop our frontage to zero? Which a lot of towns have done, precisely to avoid this problem. But what actually we did today at the office, in order to come here today, is that we looked at the parcels that we've already lost. So you have some parcels in here that actually sit in the district and they don't count. Because it's lost. But you wouldn't want to take out these little parcels that are peppered in here. You'd end up with a district that looked like a jigsaw puzzle. Makes no sense. So you're allowed to leave parcels in order to have a district that's reasonable shape. But they don't count toward for 898.
What makes the person?
So we're allowed to leave it in.
Yes.
You know that we have put
Right.
the state doesn't come.
What the state cares about is, does this model show that you get to 898 units? And at least 15 units.
Okay.
And at least 20% of the land areas within the state have out of the state.
So you don't have to go to the state.
No, you don't. Because we've already lost lots anyway that are smaller than 10,000 square feet. But you wouldn't want to keep them out. You can leave them in. You just can't count them for purposes of what? Yeah, exactly. They're made non-conforming for district design purposes. Therefore, they don't contribute units. But for the sake of a district boundary that makes sense, you can keep them in.
They could still be purchased and added to another lot. Correct? They could still be purchased by somebody and added to another lot.
Right.
They would still be in the zoning.
Right. Yeah.
And then a follow-up to Adam's comment in regards to making one individual buying side-by-side undersized lots. They still cannot subdivide within 36 months, yes?
So the way the zoning is written right now, they have to have at least 10,000 square feet for development. So if they have more than mean, they can, some make a divide the lot as long as they have lots that are 10,000 square feet. What? Well, yeah, so let's get out to the frontage, because we spent a long time today trying to figure out what minimum frontage you actually need. And the recommendation we're prepared to make is that we think about 40 feet. We think 40 feet would work. The only thing that Sarah said to me today was, when you start losing some of these parcels because of the 10,000 square feet, you may want to think about upping that units per acre a little bit, which is 16 right now to 18. But if you did that, you went with 40 feet of frontage, you should be fine.
Okay.
I mean, those parcels are still in the district. So yes, they sort of water down, if you will, the density because they're there. They don't contribute. But have enough land and enough attainable density in the rest of the district that it's not a problem. That was Sarah's determination, like 2:30 this afternoon. So we really should be okay, but you need to deal with the frontage.
Yeah.
So putting the frontage of 40 feet would solve.
It looks to us like it did. I
It's
mean,
all-
I have to tell you, I was a little frustrated that one of our assessor's maps is due this afternoon. Because I thought maybe the frontage for each parcel would be there, and it's not.
Right.
So we were trying to just do guesstimates off the geographic information system maps, and we were therefore pretty conservative. I'd like to tell you 50, I can't.
Yeah, our zoning board was concerned about making it to 0. That was our biggest concern, and I think 40 would be acceptable. We could live with that. Do you have a question, sir?
Yes, that's,
Sorry.
the proposed district currently is A2, commercial, highway, business. Industrial. Does that mean that the area that's zoned is going to lose their existing?
No, it's an overlay.
It is an overlay.
It is an overlay, yes, sir.
So it's simply going to add.
It just, we're adding this option to those zones. Yes, sir.
Most communities are doing this as an overlay. Rockwood used to, is not, but for different reasons. But most of them are overlays, so they supplement existing park that are taken away.
Thank you.
So that's kind of where we are with this. I think you're okay.
Excellent. That was our biggest concern with, when we talked to town council and everything, correct, Kathy? So, Kathy, do you have any questions or anything that you want to add, or?
I'm just happy to hear that you sort of incorporated these,
Oh, that's all.
beautiful.
That was literally, you got comments from town council. It looks like it's a lot.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It really wasn't. It was like 5 minutes worth of work. It was done.
And so to be fair too, that was submitted much earlier than we got the feedback on because that person was out with medical,
Sure. I understand.
So, thank you for accepting it, quite the last minute.
Oh, yeah, no, it's fine. I mean, the comments were fine.
Okay.
So I can send it back to you. I think the only thing that town council mentioned, I think in the email, but not in the comments on the document, we need to make sure that development in this district will not require a special permit under the floodplain watershed.
Yeah.
So I added that.
Right.
Yes.
And I did have a follow-up, and I think you kind of answered it, but I wanted to put it out there because there was confusion, not just on the board.
Okay.
Back in regards to these little parcels. They don't need to be individually disqualified, and they can remain as an overlay piece of land that currently would not just be built upon
That
with
was
this.
Sarah's assessment this
Okay.
afternoon.
So we wouldn't need exclusions, we would just need, we would just need to say, oh, you want to build here? You can.
Right, well, listen, we said bullet. And that's the parcel. That's So the model doesn't make frontage is the problem. That's where we want this from the start. The model does not make frontage. So it's not. It's not required in the law, but they are looking at anything that would make it impossible for a developer to propose a development at 15 units a year, whatever it is, on an existing parcel. So if your frontage requirement is 100 feet, but the parcels don't have 100 feet, you don't have what the state is determining to be as a right development. We think that it will. I mean, I don't have an accurate measure of frontage on one of these parcels, but we did count some measurements in GIS and it looked okay to us.
Okay.
We don't need an accurate to go forward.
They're just going to look at the same GIS we did.
They also mentioned, turning out so mentioned that we should add a section that earth removal.
Yeah. I forget this. Earth removal, it varies from town to town, so please forget. Earth removal is in your zoning.
I'm not 100% sure on that. I believe so, but I don't want to.
If it's in the zoning bylaw, we just need it.
Okay.
Or if it's a special permit, we would just say, it doesn't need a special permit under section 1 law, it would be interesting.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, he's right. That's what I've done with all that, so. We'll send it back to you.
The attorney also made the point that without request, if they go over to say 10% for the house,
Yeah.
that we do not assume we're not asking that that's from other zones.
Right, we had talked about that. I had asked you if you wanted inclusionary zoning to apply town-wide or just within this district.
But I was wondering why they didn't question it. Because we didn't request it, such a social.
I think she just wanted to make sure.
As much as that would be a good thing, it's not going to pass this time.
Well, it's also not, we're all for
It's
I'm sort of both sides. So it's kind of consciousness that we've also done that if they develop one to go to 4-story, compromise that we do some more. They have that.
They need to provide 10% support. Right. But I think that was just a question. I think the council was trying to make sure that you understood that this was only applied in this district.
Just as overlay.
So you're saying there's a low minimum required?
Yep. 10%.
10%.
At 20 units.
And we're not coming from we're not from 40B or 49.
Yeah.
Just trying to get something back for our willingness.
That goes for 10%.
Yeah, so we're trying to get our 10% up as best we can. My recommendation was try, if you only make it 10%, you ain't gaining on anything. If you don't make it higher than 10, but it is what it is.
If you do 10%, you actually get the whole number.
Right. But you're not gaining on your.
I resisted the increase, but
Pardon
I resisted the increase, but we compromised.
Does anybody else have any other questions?
Thought it should intrigue you.
The housing that you have for families, is there a minimum on how many have to have families or a maximum?
No, we just can't put any restrictions.
Can't put any, so you could have, you could have families.
You could, sure. You could have also a developer that will do senior housing. It's just that the zoning can't force them to do. A developer, may or may not choose to do larger units near a train station.
You can't prohibit it, you can't prohibit it for 4-bedroom.
Right. Can't.
fall.
You can do that if you want. Some towns have done it, some have not.
if you decide that we're going to default, what is your record, what is your experience as far as setting the state before the time of the approval versus afterwards? And the reason I ask that is because we determined that they put the 13 times where you had gone forward.
Hold on.
We don't doubt any current comments back from housing and communities made changes that are going to town meeting now. So I'm not sure, I have to go back and read council's memo made it, but, you know, many towns could not make their deadline in 90 days. What I have seen recently is the communities are taking the Attorney General's office on their offer, and they're turning it around. But they're not the final arbiter for whether we apply the communities law. It's HLC. So, I do know what HLC has asked communities to do. If you submit it, saying our town meeting is next, and they will try to get back. They're still giving months and already passed the law.
No.
Another question, out of the 170 communities, the ones that have submitted to both Attorney General and the housing, how many, how often has the Attorney General's office approved it with the housing?
Good question. So Arlington was approved. The problem is that most of the rapid transit communities are cities. They are not subject to the Attorney General. They only have to satisfy housing communities. So we don't have a good record to go on. Lexington's been approved and Arlington's been approved.
But who hasn't been approved? Who hasn't been approved by the Attorney General?
It has been denied.
Yeah.
Well, Brookline's a town, theirs is in there. It just hasn't been disapproved.
But has anybody been disallowed by?
Not by the Attorney General.
Okay.
Sorry, I misunderstood you.
According to the attorney.
What?
According to the attorney products, there have been communities that didn't pass, that have other recommendations.
Recommendations have been given to communities, but before they went to town meeting. We have not, I checked on this again today. No one has been disapproved by housing communities yet. We know, Wellesley knows, both paths theirs, as we can get before. They have to make a tweak. But they've been, so their approval is not being held up because of tweak. Just, yeah.
This is just a point of information. How did they come up with the number 890?
It's a percentage of Census 2020 housing stock. And I can't compute it here on my phone.
And then, so it's 898 for every,
No,
that's for us, okay. Now I understand.
Interrail communities, they looked at your Census 2020 housing count. And there was a 15%, I think, may have been, but that's how they looked at it. Of course, a lot of the adjacent towns are just similar.
And are they really careful about the mileage from the train station?
Yep.
Is that when you talk about Rockland, that's a remarkable.
They don't have a train station.
I know that.
Right. So that, in a town like that, it's another eligible location, someplace that makes sense.
Okay. Anyone else? All good? Board, anyone on the board have any other questions? Thank you very much, Judy.
You just need to tell us what you want us to do.
We're going to try to talk with Kathy. We'll figure that out right now.
My only concern is our contract with the MHP. It's a few,
Okay.
so we would need to ask them to instead. Protection for.
That's a town admin
Yeah.
crowd.
All right.
1 minute to go.
All right, if everyone's all set, I'm going to close this public hearing. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. Have a great night.